Right, we will get started. It is Tuesday, October 22nd at 6 p.m. I am Katie Logan Hedges, Chair of the Finance Committee. With me, we have, I believe, most of council, as well as the committee. We have the Law Director, the Mayor, the HR Director, the Safety Director, the whole crew is here, Service Director. If we could call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and Melissa, if we could do a roll call, please.
Hedges.
Here.
Hedges.
Here.
Hallinan.
Here.
Duval.
Here.
Thank you. Melissa sent out the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was October
9th. Was it 9th? No.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, it was
October
Wednesday
9th.
night.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah,
Any changes, corrections, questions, additions to those minutes?
move to approve.
Motion to approve
As
by
submitted.
Tom Duval,
Second.
seconded by Jeff Hallinan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So we have three pieces of business today. Melissa, if you could take letter A, please.
Ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery by the city of applications to add property to the Circleville New Community Authority and supplement declarations to the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions for the Circleville New Community Authority under Revised Code Chapter 349.
Thank you, ma'am. So I think President Keller is going to speak to this.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. So the NCA was formed and we had a board meeting in which we passed multiple resolutions related to three projects in the city that are going to be included in the NCA, and that board adopted those resolutions. Now there's city council action to be taken, and this is the first step. Is this ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of the city applications, which there are three. It's another step to add the additional tax onto the property owners, new owners, I should say, and then we'll collect those eventually down the road. There's a very specific timeline that we have to follow because of the NCA. So this first piece of legislation is to come to Finance Committee since it deals with revenue. Hopefully it's forwarded out your committee to council for approval at the next council meeting. And there's still some other steps we got to follow as well, like a public hearing for the properties and things like that. So this is just the next step of that process of adding those three new developments into the NCA.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions or comments regarding that? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to forward this on to council with recommendations for approval. That's the next step, I think.
Second.
Yes.
So motioned by Jeff Allen and seconded by Tom Duval to forward this on to council with a recommendation for passage as we go to council on November 5th. Can we please do a roll call?
Hedges.
Yes.
Hallinan.
Yes.
Duval.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. This will move on to council. All right, letter B, please, Melissa.
An ordinance amending the annual appropriation ordinance and the general fund 101 capital improvement 0.4% income tax fund, 206 police and fire disability pension fund, 217 and capital improvements fund, 306 of the city of Circleville.
Thank you. So this is our 13th housekeeping ordinance from the year sent by Auditor Bidwell. He sent his overcap as he normally does. The majority of this, just under $190,000, is for the purchase of Atwater property for the park that was previously discussed. Past that, there are some small fees associated, and then there was a $15,000 legal expense in regards to the NCA. Mark, is there anything specifically that you want to call out?
No, the biggest thing was the Atwater that was approved at last council meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions from the committee members for Mark?
Nope, just
Anyone from
housekeeping.
council or anybody? Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve and send to council.
Thank you. Moved by Tom Duval,
Second.
seconded by Jeff Allen. And Melissa, can we please do a roll call?
Hedges.
Yes.
Hallinan.
Yes.
Duval.
Yes.
Thank you. And that will move forward to November 5th as well. So the third item on our agenda was tabled from our October 9th meeting. This is the discussion regarding the comp plan. Before we put it back on the agenda, I think we have to make a motion to bring it off the table to put it back on the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motioned by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Tom Duval. Let's do a roll call, please.
Hedges.
Yes.
Hallinan.
Yes.
Duval.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so this is the comp plan changes that have been done over the course of the last several months by a lot of people under the direction of the law director. our last meeting, we went through some basic definitions, asked some clarifying questions, and then sent out a litany of information and follow-up email. I appreciate everybody coming today so that we could kind of answer those questions. My understanding from the administration is that no additional questions were asked of them. That certainly doesn't mean that someone doesn't have a question tonight, but I wanted to open the opportunity up to anyone who has questions that still have not been answered.
That was good.
President Keller.
Yeah, thank you. So only question I asked was to the law director and Ballard, and I don't know who else. There's two things. One was we were retroactively doing the pay increases, which we are. And secondly, a lot of the cleanup of the comp plan deals with positions that haven't been filled for years, the renaming of positions, reclassification of positions. And I just raised questions about the Parks and Rec director. That was passed in 1999. I think Marty Delamain was our only Parks and Rec director ever. She was just only here a few years. So I just questioned why we're considering that as just like other positions on this list, of positions that haven't been filled for years.
Okay.
And I know the process is going to be those that we eliminate out of the comp plan going forward. If there is a plan to ask for a new position or to create a new position, we'll go through the whole committee and council approval process to do that, to add it to the comp plan.
Yes.
Perfect example is a council clerk full-time.
Yes.
It's not in this plan.
Correct.
If we're going to do that, it's going to be through the committee and council process. So Michelle or Jim, whoever would like to answer that question about the Parks and Rec director.
Yeah, we were asking for that in this year's budget is the reason it was left in there. Going to see if we could get a Parks and Recs department started this year or 2025.
2025.
Yes, is the only reason that was left in there as far as I know. So
Has the park board formally voted
no, the park
on
board
a
has not.
regional Parks and Rec director?
No, they have not.
So just curious, why wouldn't we go through the process that we're doing with these other positions?
We could. We just left that in there because it was already created at one time. So
Right. Jim, were you working here when she was here?
yes, there was a parks director when I was here. So
Marty she was the Parks and Rec director
Right.
in the late 90s. Yeah.
yeah, so there was a parks department as well, which of course that's all been
Correct. And we taking those positions out of this.
right.
Some
So
of the positions.
yeah, we're basically starting over, and the parks director was the first position that would make sense to create or to refill. So
Well, I know a lot of the early conversation was why we're not talking about a full-time council clerk, so we're waiting to see what happens with the levy.
right.
What I've heard many times. I'm just asking the same question for this position.
Yeah, I guess that position would be an unfilled position. If the levy doesn't pass and the funding isn't there, then it just won't be there. So it's valid. I mean,
It was left in though because my understanding is because you were intending to ask for one should the funds exist.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
But to your point, we could go through the same.
If that's a hang up for this, I don't have an issue with taking it through a process.
And I will note for that legality reason, I believe that there is the subsection to also change the name of that from a director to a coordinator, just because we don't want a director answering to a director. So, I mean, at this point, we can abolish it in its entirety. We can rename it. We can table it and put a caveat that separate ordinance has to approve the final hire of that. There's a lot that we can do. It doesn't make this necessarily dead in the water. I think Jim's here articulating his basis for it. But again, that's your decision to make what you want the legislation to reflect.
We couldn't finance pass it through and then it be changed by the time it goes through council?
So this first reading would be on election day.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the plan is on passing, whether we'll do a first reading or a second reading. So if you hold for 2 readings, it could be amended if the levy fails. If the levy passes, you just go on.
So we could do that, or it sounds like you're okay to take it out and go through the process.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
I can have that section completely abolished by, if you guys put that caveat on passage or referral subject to this section being removed. And then by the time it gets to full council floor, It's not in the proposed legislation to council floor.
Well, Katie, I said, I'm not a voting member, I'm just.
Yeah, sure. No, I think your points are valid.
But that would be consistent.
But the reason we're doing these other.
Well, I don't think it is consistent because some of the positions that we were taking out, we didn't have plans to fill. This is a position that has already been approved by council that should it be funded in next year's budget through the budget process, it's already created by the city.
But it is consistent in that we will not fill it if the levy does not pass, similar to the council clerk.
No, because the council clerk position isn't created already.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
But
Not full-time.
Right.
And that's why I was saying to be consistent with the full-time council clerk, which we denied. It would be more consistent, in my opinion, to take it out and then bring it back through if we need it next year.
Well, like I said, if it's a holdup for the overall legislation, it's something that we can go
and what
through.
I'm hearing from you is even if it wasn't, if the levy didn't pass, it wouldn't be something you would pursue.
We wouldn't be able to fund it if the levy
Yeah.
doesn't pass.
So if that's the case, I'm in agreement with
So
Tom.
your committee could strike it out.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's up to your committee.
Perfect.
We could-
Sherry, did you have a question?
Yes, pertaining to that, that has been on the books for years and it has not been funded. So if it's something that we may, as a city, want to look forward in the future, we could leave it on the books and just not fund it. We don't need to necessarily take it out because I think it is a desirable thing if the levy passes. To that point, the parking enforcement officer is the same situation, I believe. It's been on the position has been created but not funded and filled for several years. And again, we've had requests for that. So I'd hate to see it taken out, but it can just remain unfunded if we don't have the resources.
Other questions? No questions
You mean about that or about?
about
any-
anything
Anything.
related to
Oh,
the
okay. I have some questions.
Go ahead.
In section 1D, it says that effective the first day of the pay period following passage of the ordinance, the salary ranges for the non-bargaining unit classifications will be as established in attachment A, but I do not see attachment.
Attachment A is the actual comp plan. You have a draft version of the comp plan.
It doesn't have numbers, though.
It won't until we have this full ordinance passage with the label on the exhibit at full council table. This is just as part of, this ordinance will go to full council. It'll have the attached exhibit labeled for that. This is committee. That can change from up to now until it gets to full council. So that you do have you should have the attachment, which is the actual comp plan.
Yeah, I do, but I was just wondering because it's the salary ranges. So on the master sheet that you gave us, it does say that people will get 4% raises, of course, each year. But then on this master sheet, it says we have a 10% raise. So could you explain that, please?
That'll go to the auditor. Any financial questions go to the auditor regarding this?
The 10% is the pay range. I don't have the document in front of me. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what we're referring to. But the 10% is the range in order to get everybody back into the actual pay range where they need to be.
Does that, I'm still not understanding.
You're fine.
Does that mean that from the old ranges to the new salary ranges is a 10% increase across the board?
The range, yes.
The range is, so if we approve
Let's take
this,
a step back
Okay.
because we went over this at the last meeting.
yeah, and I listened to the meeting, but
So when you look at the overall comp plan, when it was formulated back in 07 and then the ordinance in 2010, there were disbursements and salary pay grade ranges. Okay, so then we had some murky periods where prior HR directors or other prior employment councils started tweaking those. And when those were tweaked, they were then kind of disproportionate to where the original comp plan and the purpose of the original comp plan was. So there was a clear delineation between certain sections of pay grades, certain groupings of pay grades. There were pay percentage increases between to keep kind of a hierarchy in place.
Mhm.
And so then when other individuals started tweaking, let's say in a pay grade 2, we give a 12% raise, but in a pay grade 6, we only gave a 2% raise. the proportionality of those pay grades got out of whack. So when I came to council in executive session at the beginning, probably mid to late spring, and started discussing the multiple individuals that we had that were out of their pay grade structures, we had to go back and figure out how to work backwards to get the majority of those individuals within their pay grade structures. So that percentage actually, I believe, overall reflects when Auditor Bidwell and I sat down, we took the original comp plan and the disbursements between those percentages, and then we allotted it to essentially almost from 2007 to where we are currently, what the percentage of those adjustments may have been for wages, inflation, had we just kept that comp plan in place. And I think that that's where that number was to adjust where those original comp plan numbers should have been to where they're at now to get us back into track. So we have a uniform comp plan, clear disbursement between the sections and provisions. And so that's where I think you're seeing that the overall percentage.
So I'm asking again, so from where we are now today, you're saying, if I understand correctly, that say the cost of living increases were not given consistently,
Correct.
those kinds of normal
Correct.
things that would be happening?
So I will be honest, one year when the comp plan got renewed, it was basically, there were certain entities and certain individuals that were just picked to receive pay increases. There was no consistency in that. And so that's the problem we are at now, trying to get everything back in line to get individuals compensated for actually the work that they're doing, because there are some individuals that have been completely uncompensated or improperly compensated for a significant period of time.
Sure, and I'm not addressing that at all. I'm just talking about from this column that has 1/1/2024 to 1/1/2025, it's a 10% increase across the board. So I'm not talking about specific employees, being adjusted to fit into their grade. This just looks like it's a 10%, and it
No,
says that.
I
I'm just
think-
trying to understand.
I think these were part of Mark's notes earlier. I think that overall 10% was to get the pay grades realigned to see where, because I will be honest, this was a trial and error process for a while to get this, to figure out and build the history backwards of what was going on with this comp plan. So in order to do that, those were some of the adjustments that were made when Auditor Bidwell and I sat down to figure out, hey, if this system had been left alone and we apply the increases across the board in unanimous front and then raise those pay grade rates as they should have been raised each 3 years on the renewal properly, the system should have kept itself in place. We should have never had to do those adjustments that were done in the middle of between the 2010 plan and the plan that went through in 21.
And I will say that another thing was that these pay grades were not adjusted on an annual basis. That's something we're doing from this point on, so that the pay grades, people stay inside those pay grades. Because if we did one pay grade adjustment in order to make, there would be no way to make it look right without making those pay grade adjustments on an annual basis. So basically what would happen was you'd have 3 or 4% raises back here, but you wouldn't have the pay grades adjusted so that they stayed along with those 3. It would just be a pay grade adjustment would stay here and your pays would keep going up. Then all of a sudden you bump it up here to just keep on trying to catch up.
Sure.
So that's what this 10% is, because basically we're looking at whatever our last 3 or 4 years worth of increases, the pay grades didn't adjust to those increases. So that's why all of a sudden you see this 10%. The actual employees will not be getting 10%. They're getting their 4% that is being requested on here. The 10% is just to make sure that when we do our payroll calculations every 2 weeks, the people are falling within the parameters that's been set by council
Sure.
and by this ordinance.
Well, I mean, some of them will be, the ones that are getting bumped up will be starting at that lower level of the new pay grade range. And that's-
I think it was 2 people.
Too.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the people
Sure.
are already making the amount that
Sure,
falls within
right.
the pay grade.
Well, I was
I've
going to
got
ask
3
one-
on this.
You provided very helpful information at the last meeting where we actually stuck a dollar amount to these changes. Can you recap that information?
Yeah, we have
Yes.
that.
So the impact for the people that are getting the pay rate that are affected by the new pay grades and by the change in the pay, their pay grade has changed and the pay range has changed as well. The total overall for 2024 impact is $7,487.79. And then for 2025, that impact is $21,225. So that's for everybody that's in the comp plan. That is the difference. And that's actually, majority of that is just getting them changed from pay grade 3 to pay grade 5. That's really it. There's that, and then there's one that is adding to the getting in the comp plan that wasn't in the comp plan before. That's a big chunk of this. And then finally, there's one that is below the current or the new pay rate. So then basically comes down to it. There's one person, and that's $859 is that person.
Well, if you average the total impact by the 39 people during the comp plan, it's like it's less than $550 a person,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
isn't, of course, how it's divided. But I mean, it shed some light onto.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
actual
when you figure how many people are in the plan, I mean, you're 25 people or so, a total of $7,487 for those increases. And again, I will reiterate that the biggest increases are due to going from one pay grade to another pay grade, not to the pay range.
And furthermore, I have a $20,000 a year budgeted position in my office that I am choosing to abolish. That money is already sitting in my account for payroll that should be able to absolve some of this offset.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
$1,200.
Quick question. It says in the, let's see, the executive summary, what Katie just said, that there are 39 people that this affects, but we only have 27 people listed on this sheet. Are there
So
other
some of
12?
them will have multiple positions. There are some of them that are multiple entities within the same position. Then there is a creation, I believe, of moving an individual in Mark's office that would change a title change. So yes, we did go through those numbers, and that's why you also see the other provisions in this ordinance that are now trying to track everything, change everything, keep everything consistent. So what is on HR's and the auditor's payroll staff is what you're seeing in the codified ordinances and the rest of the city ordinances.
I see. So there aren't actually 12 other people that have their salaries changing or pay
And then
rates changing.
obviously we will be getting rid of the one that the discussion from Mr. Stanley earlier this evening.
We could.
Well, right, the
Yeah.
position is there, but it's not funded and there isn't an
Correct,
actual
correct,
person there.
correct.
So that and I guess the other is the parking enforcement officer. So those are 2 positions that aren't listed here because we don't have them filled at the moment. Okay. All right.
Other questions? Sure, are you all good?
I did have a question about when, and maybe the Human Resources Director can answer this. It says that each classification will have a minimum maximum salary established. I'm at 1E. The Human Resources Director is performing a survey every 3 years, beginning 1 year from the effective date of this ordinance. Why is it 1 year from essentially now or when this is effective? Or actually, it was effective June, right? It would go back to June.
If we go back to June, we actually, it's been hit or miss, but we actually do those salary comparisons. When I came to executive session earlier in the spring, I did present the results of that survey from, I believe, our employment attorneys firm who had pulled cities where we were seeing the amount of money for comparable positions across different cities. This again then is to establish, giving her, the Human Resources Director, the ability to perform that surveys then so we can adjust any pay grades we need to adjust. And then each 3 years, we should be classifying or rerunning the classification for our employees to make sure they still fall within their pay grades. And that they fall, that their pay grade is categorized by their work that they're doing with their job descriptions.
You just want to start early?
That would be
Essentially.
preference again, because if we have to come to council in a drawn out process, we have those materials for you.
Okay, but you've already built in the increases for the next 3 years.
Correct.
So that,
This would start then for the fall, the next round of renewal of comp plan.
okay. And if you could clarify, on this sheet that the ranges change on January 1st, but then the salaries are adjusted on June 1st, is that correct?
You want?
Yeah, it actually came to my attention that this was, the rate date I put on there was incorrect on the 1/1/2025. That actually is a 6/1 of 2024, that the pay range will change. It was just the way, we were discussing it, I did not put the correct date on there.
No, I think that's different. Question you're going to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The actual pay ranges will change 1/1. That has been consistent across all of the previous comp plans. So to keep that consistency in place, we have put the 1/1/24 pay range only. And again, that's only going to affect those few individuals that are jumping a pay range. Then moving forward then is the next 6 months, and that 6/1 raise then to allot for that raise, yes. So moving forward though, then you will expect to see the rate changes then on the fiscal first of each calendar year.
The pay raises or the
Yes.
pay adjustments on the first?
Correct. The problem is through the history of the comp plan, we either started 1/1 or we started 6/1. And that back and forth is inconsistent for the auditor. It's inconsistent for any department. It's inconsistent to try to keep track of, okay, on 6/1 we do this, or on 1/1 we do this. We are trying to get everything uniform back to a January 1 start date.
I see. Thank you.
Other questions?
Question?
I don't have any questions. Just more of a statement. Just watching everything. Had the opportunity to watch that fun meeting on CGTV5, and but the statement is just thanks for. I mean, we got a lot of dedicated people. Thanks for the time and effort that was put into this. I know it's quite an undertaking. Just appreciate the time and effort that was done on both the committee level and all the people behind the scenes working on it. So just wanted to take time to say thank you for that.
Is there, do you have something else?
I just want to make a comment, in union negotiations, we retro a lot of stuff, and that's why we felt it's important to get retro as well, to be consistent
Yeah, I agree.
with what we do for our union employees. These people are not represented by a union, so that they are treated the same.
Yeah, well, and I certainly don't think it was the inside of anyone that has taken as long as it has. There's obviously been a full docket this year of things that unfortunately took precedent, so. Is there a recommendation if there is no further questions or comments from council, from the committee?
You want me to- So before I make this recommendation, Kendra, would it be easiest to change for this consistency that we were talking about? So it is section 6, letter F. It would stay amend the ordinance to abolish the position?
Correct, and we would abolish that position and abolish any codified or any ordinance related to that. And we can change the language, I've already got it marked.
Thank you. So I can just forward it on with that language change. We don't have to do anything before that.
Correct.
And then, and Sherry's point to keep obvious, because it sounds like we're never going to have a parking enforcement officer. Should we make a move to stay consistent and do the same thing with that position?
So the only caveat I would place on that is we need to make, I understand that likely we're going to have a committee in front, or I'm assuming Paul Pride will be making a formal recommendation as to structure.
Good point.
Again, without putting the cart before the horse too.
Right.
I haven't had the opportunity because that is his project, working, I believe, with the the acting soon-to-be chief of police as well as our safety director.
Yeah.
I don't want to force that hand yet, so I can reach out and see where that structure falls. We can visit that, or we can remove it. That's within your parameters and your discretion.
That is different than just a director for the park. So that's tied to safety and the things that we need. So I can see the difference in that. So probably I would think should leave it. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. All right. With that said, then I'll make a motion to forward this to council on November 5th with the changes that we discussed in section 6, row F, with recommendations for passage upon first, second, third reading, whatever we end up with.
So the motion by Jeff Hallinan, second
Second.
by Tom Duval.
Hedges,
Yes,
Hallinan,
Yes.
Duval.
Yes.
thank you.
And then just to bring it to this committee's attention, even though the ordinance originated out of another committee, since the majority of council is here, I will also then send a formal request to the council clerk to, since this is going on to council, to also untable the ordinance that originated in the judicial committee on 7/30 of 2024. That would be the amending the chapter 139.02 of the codified ordinances by establishing the composition of the City of Circleville Department of Utilities, declaring an emergency. That is an adjustment that's already been made in the comp plan. Originally, we thought we would just be bringing forth a small number of ordinances to fix the comp plan. Since that provision in that ordinance is now actually already in the comp plan and established, I would bring that back to council's attention to have a vote on that. Obviously, I'll be able to speak to that at the full council meeting. But there's no need for two competing things that are going to essentially, this ordinance would encompass the other.
Perfect.
So just to echo what John's sentiments were, thank you, Kendra, and I know Jen and Valerie and everybody that worked on that. We appreciate all your efforts and hanging through while we got all of our questions answered and made sure that everybody had visibility on everything. So we appreciate it. Any old business? One thing I do want to call attention to, our next finance meeting will be held at November 14th at 5:00. That is an off day. I'm going to say sole purpose, but we might add something to it. But the primary purpose of that meeting at this point will be to approve the 2025 budget. We did want to wait till after the levy happens so we know what the budget will look like. So November 24th, 5 p.m. Is our next finance meeting.
November 14th.
14th. Did I say
14th.
that?
Thursday.
Yeah, it's a Thursday. All right. If there is nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Moved by Tom Duval,
Second.
seconded by Jeff Hallinan. We are adjourned at 6:33.